To Abhiraman, Senior Policy Counsel at the ACLU of Georgia. This is a pretty great bill, especially the intent of the different sections. In terms of what's added to the bill, from adding to the time off section, adding other things like the audit section and whatnot, I wanted to address one thing. Having risk limiting audits run after both the primary and the election may be a burden on elections officials, especially in areas where a primary runoff will be occurring. It's already difficult to turn around an election in just 4 weeks to make the runoff happen and get your absentee ballots out. And if there's perhaps an exemption for the areas that have a primary runoff, that might be a good idea. In terms of time off for voting, absolutely fantastic intent behind this bill, and support the expansion of time off for voting through the early vote period. There's one concern I have, and I'm going to flip in the sub to try to find this section. Yes, section 3. All right, so I'm going to point to lines 100 through 102, the part that says, provided that if the hours of work of such employee commence at least 2 hours after the opening of the polls or end 2 hours prior to the closing of the polls, then the time off shall not be available. Now, obviously, that was written when the provision only applied to election day. It kind of makes sense when only applied to election day, but it could present a doomsday scenario when you apply this language to the early vote period. You can imagine that in a 17-day early vote period with 2 Saturdays, an employer might point to this language and say, wait, you're not working on Saturday, therefore, we don't have to give you any time off. That would create a constraint through this bill where an employee who had 2 hours off on election day would then not get any hours off because the employer is saying, hey, Saturday's available, and that person might be working somewhere else on a Saturday. You know, I've worked with many temp workers who work nearly every day of the week in this elections game. And for them, what are they going to do in that situation, right? Work one place Monday through Thursday, another place Friday through Sunday. If you leave that language in there, which is the employer's right to say no, it could present a real problem when you expand it to early vote. So what we would suggest as an amendment is crossing those lines out. Let's cross those lines out. Let's make this a clean right to take time off to vote, instead of creating a difficult possible scenario when it comes to legislative intent not matching the text of the bill with those lines applying to early vote. So that's the main concern here. I would also recommend one change that would make this bill just extra strong. Folks know that employees take time off for jury duty. We support that in Georgia. You take time off for jury duty. What does the law say? It says, it shall be unlawful for any employer or the agent to discharge, discipline, or otherwise penalize an employee because the employee is absent for jury duty. That's anti-retaliation language that would make this section just extra strong. So we would recommend that belt and suspenders type approach and just take the language that applies to jury duty, and that's in Code Section 34-1-3A. Take that language and have it apply to this section, have it apply right after the line 104. And we have that suggested amendment that we can take offline if needed. But that anti-retaliation language, making it consistent with jury duty, that would make this just an ultra strong bill that we appreciate the intent behind.